Well, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. First, let me thank Secretary Moniz for starting his quadrennial energy review in Providence, Rhode Island. And thank you. You're gracious and just insightful comments. I really appreciate it. And purely coincidental, it's only 30 minutes from your home in Fall River. I understand that, Mr. Secretary. And I also want to
Former home.
former home. No. You're already. I'm from Cranston. You're from Fall River. That's the way it goes, Mr. Secretary. And I also want to welcome, particularly Dr. Cordova. I had the privilege of serving with her on the Smithsonian Board, and we are very lucky to have someone this talented leading the National Science Foundation. So thank you very much, Doctor. We've all talked about the future of this country, the scientific future, but it's also related, obviously, to the economy, and not just the economy of the country, the economy of particular localities. And historically, we have had areas of the country that have built up already significant scientific infrastructures, the Boston-Cambridge area, the New York City, we've invested in terms of laboratories. There are at least two programs that have tried to provide institutional support throughout the country, and Rhode Island is one of those places. One is the EPSCoR program, National Science Foundation, and also the Institutional Development Award Program, Dr. Collins. Can you talk about what you're trying to do to make sure that if we raise up the budget levels to adequate heights, that this will be invested in a diverse way into institutions that are not just the Cambridge Boston axis or the New York City axis or the et cetera. Dr. Collins?
Well, I appreciate the question about the IDEA program, which is something that we are very proud of in terms of what it has contributed to science. And earlier comments about EPSCoR also pointing out what an important program this is as far as training, because the next generation of talent doesn't necessarily all grow up in Boston. They're all over the country, and they ought to have a chance to be involved in very exciting research. I recently visited with Senator Moran the Kansas IDEA program and heard something about the research going on there. And it was very exciting to see what had been possible with those dollars in states that have not had traditionally such a high proportion of research-intensive institutions. The current funding for IDEA is $273 million in the NIH budget, and we particularly use those dollars to try to encourage universities within those states to link up with each other and also to develop core facilities that can be used and to make better training opportunities. I think that's been a very successful enterprise, and it was increased disproportionately a couple of years ago. Obviously, we'd love to see it get bigger, but of course, we'd love to see the other things that are struggling right now have more resources to go with. I think we have to continue to make the point that we are based primarily as a meritocracy on the very best science, but great science is happening all over, and certainly the IDEA program is an emblem of the ways in which that can be supported and can result in good outcomes. And we do hope that program is also an incubator for researchers and institutions to find themselves into the upper ranks in terms of their success in getting grant funding. That would be a very nice metric of success.
Dr. Cordova, your comments?
Yes, Senator Reid, and it's great to see you here today. Thank you. NSF is committed to the EPSCoR program, and I personally want to be much more involved. Dr. Holdren mentioned earlier the importance of the untapped talent pool that we have in this country, namely in women and minorities, and I would like to help foster that and be a role model for that. And you can only do that if you get out of the Beltway and you go to all these places. So that's one point. Following on Dr. Collins' point about all the untapped potential, I want to just give you a number from the National Science Foundation about the number of awards that we can't fund. There's about $2 billion a year of awards which score as high as the awards that we do fund, $2 billion worth of proposals. That is just an enormous amount of potential that we're leaving on the table because we simply don't have the money to invest in them.
Just to make 2 points because my time is expiring. One is, and they've been made before and more eloquently than I, is that it's not just about the science, it's also about the scientist. And if we're not investing these dollars, we will, they just won't go off to to China because of the laboratories. They just won't get into science, so we'll miss them. I was up at Brown, and basically explained to me, if you don't get a NIH grant or an NSF grant before you're 30, you're not going to be an academic. You're going to go someplace else to do something else, either willingly or unwillingly. And the second point, too, another resource which I think you've got to think hard about, all of you, and Secretary Moniz and all, is that one of the other aspects here of research is supercomputing. And access to that type of power is not unique, it's not uniform throughout the country. And you've got to think of ways of how institutions that might have good ideas but have to access that can get that supercomputing. So I leave that with you, and I thank you all for your service, Dr. Holdren, and thank you very much.